Many people in Japan know about Jewish people only through the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is sort of like a foundation of what we know as anti-Semitism today. But I didn't know who the Jewish people were really. So it took me about 3 years since this Rosh Hashanah dinner.
Why would a Japanese man from a family of samurais leave everything behind and become an Orthodox Jew? Meet a man who now goes by the name of Moshe. His search for purpose in life will blow you away. In this episode, you'll hear about the most brilliant way to find the right job for you with purplesteers.com, the coziest summer clothing with Twillery, how BitBean solutions make your workforce more productive and satisfied. And you're going to also hear about the 3 books from Feldheim that you need to get, and you're going to get a little discount. This episode is in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima, as well as Miriam Sarbas Yaakov Moshe. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Okay, Moshe Chaim, thank you so much for coming. We're going to talk about how you got to Judaism. But before then, where are you from and what was your childhood like?
Sure. I am from a very traditional Japanese household. My grandfather, who was born, I believe he was born in 1926. As a young man, he served the country as a pilot for the Japanese army. He was one of the last generation of Japanese boys to be raised as samurai. Do you know who samurai is?
I know the guy with like a long sword and something to do with honor.
Whatever you think of a samurai, whatever you think you know about samurai, is not it.
Okay, so fill us in. What exactly is a samurai?
So a samurai is a man of honor, integrity, and propriety, meaning that he lives by the discipline called Bushido. Bushi means warrior. Do means way of. So it's the code of honor and self-restraint, meaning discipline, to be able to be the model citizen, to be able to protect and defend the fellow citizens when necessary. At the same time, he is the definition of a Menschlichkeit. So that was my grandfather.
Well, hold on. I have to ask. So could anyone become a samurai? Is it only like, well, if your father's a samurai, then you could become a samurai, like a Kaien type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's just like that. And one needs to be born into it. So my grandfather was a samurai. His father was samurai too. His great grandfather also. So my grandfather's son, my father, also, and I was born into it. So it's the unbroken chain of, brave people, of honor and discipline.
I'm cutting ahead, but I'm just so curious. Are you the first technically samurai Jew?
I think so. There's always a first,
Okay, that's pretty cool. And we'll get to Judaism later on. But tell me a little more about your grandfather, and in the context of, I guess, like how he raised his family and things like that.
So he was born in 1926, and as a young man, and a bright and a physically capable young man, he enlisted himself on the Japanese army on the onset of the war, and he was promoted to be one of the so to speak, one of the top guns on the army, and he was a pilot of a bomber on the last defense line before the homeland. So that was a 4-man bomber, and he was one of them. And the plane was shut down. My grandfather told me all this. His plane was shut down and went into the ocean. 3 other men died. Miraculously, my grandfather survived. And my grandfather was floating on the water, according to my grandmother, and the fishermen fished him out to save him. And he recovered from his injuries. War ended. He came home. Normally, coming home alive from a war is a shameful thing, especially in his generation. But he didn't think that way. He took the pride of serving his nation and he kept on living by the discipline and tradition that he was raised with. That is called Bushido. Mm-hmm. Bushido means the code of warrior. Bushi means warrior. Do means the way of. So that's a code of discipline that he lived by, which is the tradition that I was raised by also. He was the manifestation of what we know as Menschlichkeit. Mm. He was an ish in amount of honor, discipline, integrity, propriety, all the great things you can think of that he was. So he came home, started a family, got married, started a family. He kept being himself, which is quite extraordinary. War ended. The nation was defeated, but he didn't change his way even for a bit. So as he was building his family, he raised his sons according to the way that he knew how to be a gentleman. So his sense of pride to be the last standing samurai, so to speak, in Japan after the war, which I call it the New World. And during and after American occupation of Japan, everybody left the tradition that was so heavy with a sense of discipline and honor. They wanted out. Mm-hmm.
Which is your father's generation, basically.
Yes, my father was born in 1948, which was 3 years after the end of the war, which was during the years of American occupation.
Okay, and then let's fast forward to when you're a child. At that point, did you have any sense of what a Jew was?
I had no idea.
No idea.
I had no idea who Jews were.
And growing up, were you a part of a certain religion? Was this Bushido, in quotes, your religion? Like, how does religion work?
That's a good question. Religion over there in Japan doesn't mean the religion we know here. Mm-hmm. It's not like religion over there doesn't mean that they're just like our notion of religion, that is our service to God according to the Torah. And not just Torah Shebiksav, but also Torah Shebapeh. That's our discipline, but there is no notion of one and absolute God, which we serve. So the religion over there is the tradition touched by emotion. This is my term. Tradition touched by emotion. That is that the tradition becomes your life. That's a tradition. Tradition was what my grandfather lived by. And he was that way until the last day of his life.
You growing up, did you get raised with that traditional sense, or was a completely new wave of whatever past that traditional raising a family was like?
Oh, well, my grandfather taught my father very well. Baruch Hashem, and God bless my father. He didn't change the way even for a bit. So my sister and I were raised according to the way that my grandfather lived. So we are very, very famous for being traditional. I was actually the only child in my class whose family still kept the old tradition. Everybody else just moved on from it.
Can you give me a practical example of like how your family was different than everyone else?
First of all, our family lived all together, meaning that my paternal grandparents, my grandfather and his wife, my parents, and the children all lived in the same house. Whereas my classmates probably just lived in a small apartment with with their parents. Mm-hmm. So that alone is very different,
right? Yeah,
and the children in my generation didn't quite have the close relationship that I had with my grandparents. Most of the day when my parents were busy, taking care of things, especially my father was at work, my mother was running the household. So most of the time when I was not in school, what I did was to spend time with my grandparents. So that's how the tradition was handed down, I suppose.
And did you at all at that time rebel against the way you were brought up, or that wasn't an option?
I did not resent the tradition that I was raised with. I felt lonely. Mm-hmm. Nobody else knew what I was, and rather everybody else thought, who are you? What do you think you're better than the rest of us? It's not that at all. But they rather resented the fact that we still had it.
But hold on, just paint it for me, because to me it doesn't sound okay. It sounds like, okay, your grandparents lived with you. That's definitely different. But like, how else was it so different than everyone else?
Well, we had a quite vivid emphasis on family, and it was a sense of selflessness, not self-sacrifice, that we think we think when we talk about the people in Asia. It's not like self-sacrifice that you literally put yourself in danger for the sake of others. And it was it was not like that. It was rather selflessness of a person for his family, for his children, and for his grandchildren. And the duty of a man was to make sure that chain of tradition, the chain of good life, was continued. That's what my grandfather did. That's what my father did. So going back to your question, nobody else in my class had it. So that's the tradition that everybody else forgot.
You're making me so curious of like, okay, you have this extremely powerful chain of family and keeping tradition, and now you're sitting here wearing a yarmulke.
Right.
How in the world did you get to Judaism?
Right. I should think of a book called Japan to Judaism.
Yeah.
And the subtitle should be, Why on Earth Did He Do It?
Right.
Right. That's
maybe the title for this video.
Right. That should be my book or my life story. So how did this happen? The story goes all the way back to my grandparents, my grandfather, and how I was unique. Not strange, but unique in my generation, and I didn't quite have the kinship to what my generation was about over there in Japan. So this is a chain reaction, really. And in 1998, I met a Jewish professor from California. I was in sophomore in college. And I had an opportunity to come to one of the satellite campuses that my college had. So here comes the professor, Jewish professor, secular, but really, really proud Jew. And he came over to give us a lecture. He talked about how a person achieves a good life. Can a person achieve a good life by pursuing material wealth, money, prestige, fancy job title, fancy degree? Can a person truly accomplish a good life in pursuing those earthly things, or something else would define a person? That question really intrigued me quite deeply. And at the time, him being Jewish really didn't mean anything to me, because I didn't quite know who the Jewish people were at the time of 1998. So what I saw in him was, the man of integrity and a deep knowledge, and a man of profound message to the professor. I really felt kinship with. I wanted to know how I can do to achieve a good life. You know my Japanese name is, given Japanese name?
I don't know. Tell me.
My given Japanese name is Hiromichi.
Hiromichi.
So that means that means the right path. So I'm in Japanese tradition, like the Jewish tradition, the name makes the person. So I was always searching the right path to a good life. So that was my main focus. That at the time, and that at the time when I met this professor. So I stayed in touch with him. And from sophomore to the graduation from college, and he coached me through the senior thesis, and I wrote the senior thesis about Adam Smith and Not Wealth of Nations.
I was going to say, that's the only thing I know from Adam Smith. Well, it's like a huge book, Wealth of Nations.
It's a big dictionary-sized book. Yeah. And he wrote a book called Theory of Moral Sentiments. So that was the foundation of, perhaps that was the foundation of his ideas of God's invisible hand, and that he utilizes in his Wealth of Nations. So that book really, really had a message of what the human life can mean, and not to the world, not only to the world, not only to the society, but to himself. What's his life about? What are you about? If somebody asks you in the elevator, saying, "Hi, my name is John, and what's your name? Where are you from?" And if the person, in some off chance, I think it's unlikely to happen, but in off chance he asks you, "I see you're Jewish. What is your life about? What are you about? Who are you?" Then what your answer be? So that was the message of the book. So I'm glad that I studied that book for my senior thesis, and that Jewish professor suggested that I should come to the States. And he is Los Angeles based. That's where I came when I moved to the United States. That was in 2001. That was 3 weeks before 9/11. The time was correct. I made it in the last minute. If I missed the opportunity, 9/11 was something that none of us could have predicted. If I missed the point, when I came over, I needed to wait for another 2 years until the border reopened. So the time was right. That's when the Hashem thought that I should come to California. And Hashem made sure that this Jewish professor was based in Los Angeles. He's actually a Los Angeles native. And Hashem made sure that I should come to LA first. And the boy from the traditional household. Remember, Yaakov?
Yeah.
That's an old-fashioned thinking Japanese boy from a traditional household comes to Los Angeles. What can you think of what's going to happen next? That I was completely lost. When I was over there in Japan, of course, English was one of the mandatory subjects, but it was a subject. I didn't know how to speak it. I couldn't even order a Big Mac and ask them to supersize it. I had no idea how to do it. So first thing I needed to do was to learn how to speak the language. When I came over to California, I had no family. I only knew this one person, one Jewish professor. That's all. That's the only connection that I had to the place. And I had also had no idea that what I was doing was practically just jumping off the cliff, diving into the ocean without knowing how to swim. So what did I do? Learn the language. And if you dive into a body of water, there are two choices. Either you just sit still or stay idle and go down and die, or learn how to swim. So I learned how to swim. I wanted to make it there. So I wanted so badly that I was able to study it night and day and night. Probably I just slept like 3 hours a day. And I couldn't, I cannot do that today. And maybe I got old, but so that was my determination. I really wanted to make it there. My mother, who I miss very, very much. And my parents still live in Japan, and my entire family is still in Japan. Just me and my wife here in this country. So my mother, just pushed my back, saying, just don't think too much. Stop thinking. Just go. See what you can do. If you succeed, that'll be great. But until you succeed, don't come back. That's the kind of a Spartan love that she is. I'm just like her. Once I do it, once I decide to do it, I do it. Mm-hmm. If I don't have the right kavanah to do it, I don't do it. So that was the first step in America.
A fascinating part is coming up, but let's face it, work is a routine. Not thrilling necessarily, but not terrible most days either. Fear of job searching while employed can paralyze the best of us. You return to the same old grind, even though you know there's something better out there for you. You guessed it. I'm talking about the new job platform, Purple Stairs. The platform has really taken off, and I'm not surprised. Why wouldn't a candidate sign up by the hundreds? They have nothing to lose. Employers are looking for people exactly like them, and they have nothing to worry about because the platform has security features that allow them to hide sensitive information, decide to share it with specific employers only. Side effects of joining Purple Stairs may include sudden job satisfaction, unexpected career advancement, and severe excitement. Go and check out Purple Stairs. Candidates sign up free. Platform is perfect for those seeking a job openly or in confidence. Not affiliated with any recruiting company, and no recruiting fees are ever charged. This is by far the most brilliant way to find the right job for you. Check out purplestairs.com, and I've had so many people reach out since the last time we spoke about them to thank us. So go ahead. Your next great opportunity is right around the corner with purplestairs.com. And now let's talk about a fact that people often get wrong about men. Men don't care about how they look. That's simply not true. It's not a true statement. Often you find men prefer not to go clothing shopping and deal with the consequences. But any man would be happy to look good and presentable. In walks Tillery, the company that gets that men don't want to have to skim the internet or walk into a mall. They've done the research. Whether it's the coziest polo shirt that also has breathing technology for those hot summer days, or that stretchy pants that you'll fall asleep in and realize it's more comfy than your pajamas. Brilliant ear suit technology, or the most dapper button-down shirts that I'm currently wearing right now. Twillory.com has you covered. Our friends at Twillory know how much you love good savings, and that's why you can use the code word INSPIRE for $18 off when you spend over $139. And don't worry, the shipping will be free too. Easy, breezy, yummy, Twillory.com. Now back to my conversation with Moshe.
Okay, you got English down, but then what? Then how did you get to Payas Beyond Your Ears and Tzitzis and Yarmulke?
Right, exactly. I'm a big payas now, as you can see.
Yes.
So after being in the ESO program for a year and a half, I was fine. I spoke like this already, and acquiring a new language is a lifelong journey. I still learn, and many things new every day from my wife. She's a native English speaker. That really helps. So after the year and a half, I started my graduate school in 2003. So things became really, really challenging. I was very sleep deprived at all times. And everything is in the language that I just mastered how to speak. I knew the language, but that's my foreign language. That's my second language. I really had a difficult time adjusting to the new environment, a new academic environment situation in a strange land, in a strange culture, in a strange language. So I felt really, really lost. So by the time 2003, by the virtue of my professor being Jewish, the same professor who suggested I should come over, that I did, and he amazing, this Jewish professor had a family tradition with one of the Orthodox rabbis at the organization called the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Yeah, sure.
In Los Angeles. His name is Rabbi Abraham Cooper, who is probably one of the most influential rabbis in America, probably worldwide. I think he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Very energetic and very influential. He has been doing many things to help the Jewish people, to increase the awareness of rising tide of anti-Semitism, what happened in the past, who the Jewish people are. My professor had a family tradition of getting together for the first night of Rosh Hashanah dinner. So the rabbi, Baruch Hashem, after 2 years of my being adrift in American society, he invited me over. I became part of this family tradition. Baruch Hashem for Rabbi Cooper and Mrs. Cooper, I believe her food is responsible for my becoming Jewish. That was the really, really comforting to eat, home cooked meal. Not only just a home cooked meal, but a home cooked meal prepared for the first night of Rosh Hashanah.
Which foods were you like?
Of course, simanim,
right?
And a lot of honey that I remember. And one thing, I don't quite remember what the menu was, but at this very table, after being adrift among the strange people in Los Angeles, I saw all the elements of the same tradition that I was raised with. Of course, my mother cooks like a genius, right? Just like all the Yiddish mama, she cooks. So I was raised with good food. And at the same time, the sense of honor, the sense of service to others, everybody's asking, how the other person is. How are you? Where's your life holding? How's everything been? So their entire eating experience was not just for the sake of eating, as we all know. Eating was the worship, a form of worship, which I really had a kinship with, because eating at our family gathering, when I was growing up, was not just eating. It was caring for others. Food was only a vehicle to achieve that home environment for the entire family. So that really resonated with me at the table. And there's a sense of honor, integrity, propriety in accordance with the Torah and the Masorah, or the tradition, and the great food. That really brought me home. And after the dinner, with a tremendous excitement, I called my parents. So I told him that the tradition that raised me with, unfortunately, was dead in Japan. And in that, I told him that the same tradition that they raised me with was vividly alive and well with the Jewish people. And they were so proud, perhaps at the same time very relieved to hear that I, re-encountered with this tradition, but at the same time I was not drifting away from the tradition. Rather Hashem Yisbarach made sure that I come back to it. So that's what happened at the first night Rosh Hashanah. So that was the beginning of my journey in terms of getting to know the Jewish people. Now I saw that, witnessed, and I was part of the Jewish life, only so briefly at the table. But that really intrigued me to the extent that I really, really wanted to know these people. I want to get to know them. And I feel so much kinship with the people, so they must have something deep in common with my upbringing. So that happened at the same time. At the same time, I was struggling through the graduate school. So my effort to get my life by getting a PhD in political science, but at the same time, my divine guided effort to define myself and see what I am as a person. So those two things, completely different directions. One to the right, perhaps higher and deeper. The other way in graduate school, it was very narrow and straight. Mm. If you understand the subject and get the concepts or not. The other way, it was very broad, open-ended inquiry about what my life was about.
How long after that Rosh Hashanah meal until you became a full-fledged Orthodox Jew?
It's a short period of time.
Really?
But again, there are many, many steps in between. So I first of all asked Rabbi Cooper what books to read. And my professor and Rabbi Cooper traveled together a lot. And I had a chance to ask him what the books to read, and he made recommendations. At the same time, when we went to Asia together, and the rabbi had 2 bags to check in, one small and one big. So I thought, Rabbi, the big bag, and he's a well-dressed person, so he must have a lot of wardrobe to bring abroad, so that he'll look, fresh and well-dressed at all times. So maybe he brings the food on the side because he keeps kosher. Man, I was wrong. The big bag had all the kosher food stuffed in. It was bursting from seams. In a small bag, he had his shirts and the suit and all the necessities. Mm. I was shocked by it. Why? Can he not eat, what he could eat over there rather than schlepping all the food along? So those pieces of experience that I had, traveling with the rabbi, invited many more questions. So my journey progressed in a very fast pace, but at the same time, this was the deep journey of getting to know the people, at the same time defining myself. So it took me about a few years, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 3 years before I was started keeping kosher.
Was there ever a point of contention with you and your parents about you becoming Jewish, or was always the same sentiment as the beginning of, he's continuing the tradition, maybe in a different way than they envisioned, but there's the sense of the tradition continuing. Which one was it more?
They have been continuously supportive.
Wow, it's beautiful.
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that many people in Japan know about Jewish people only through the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is sort of like a foundation of what we know as anti-Semitism today. But I didn't know who the Jewish people were really. So it took me about 3 years since this Rosh Hashanah dinner before I was keeping kosher already. And my health was completely ruined by eating, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, double burgers, supersized fries, sodas, and by the end of 5th year. And after moving to America, my health was in shambles. At the same time, of course, I was sleep deprived in grad school. So I started keeping kosher. And, I did this because I thought, wait a minute, rabbi's always healthy, energetic. And my friends, my kosher keeping friends, seemed happy. I'm miserable, fat, sort of like over-salted in many ways. So I'll try. There must be some wisdom behind it. Baruch Hashem, I did that. I lost weight quite rapidly, and my head became very clear. I became energetic. Baruch Hashem, I regained my health. So that was 3 years since the Rosh Hashanah dinner. Every year since then, I was part of that dinner again annually. So every year, I sort of like reminded myself what I saw at the first Rosh Hashanah table. Second year, I've noticed many more things that I want to know about because of reading books and getting to know the people during that year. The third year, fourth year, all my knowledge about Jewish people deepened. So since I started keeping kosher, it only took me about 2 years before I was partly participating in Shabbos.
We'll be right back this week's episode, but I need to tell you the next books you need to put on your shelf. Get ready to delve into the depths of Jewish law, custom, and ethics with Rabbi Moshe Walter's enlightening series of books. A distinguished leader and scholar, Rabbi Walter serves as the Rav of Woodside Synagogue, Ahavas Torah, and is the executive director of the Rabbinical Council of Greater Washington. Okay, you're going to discover the making of a halachic decision and explore the intricate processes behind Jewish legal rulings. From selecting a rabbi to understanding the nuances of Psak Halacha, his book provides profound insights into the daily practice of halacha. Then you're going to transition into the making of a minhag, where you'll uncover the roots and reasons behind Jewish customs. Why do we light bonfires in Lag Bomer? What is the significance of adorning our shuls with flowers on Shavuos? Where Walter navigates these questions and more, shedding light on the customs that shape our traditions. And in the making of a mensch, you're going to tackle the moral dilemmas of today, from ethics of tzedakah solicitations to the profound questions of self-sacrifice in times of war. These 3 pivotal works published by Feldham are now available at special 20% discount exclusively for the Living L'Chaim family. Visit Feldham.com and use code WalterLL, that's Walter LL, at checkout to enhance your understanding of these complex topics. You'll gain a deeper appreciation and knowledge of your Jewish background. And let's be honest, these are the questions that we should know the answer to. Rabbi Moshe Walter guides you through the intellectual and spiritual journey that awaits in each page. Get your copies today and join a world of thoughtful observance and profound understanding. Remember, use the code WalterLL for exclusive discount of 20% at Feldham.com. Of course, we're going to have links below. And of course, if you don't want the 20% discount, you could buy it in local farm store near you. Now, before we head back into this episode, business owners, listen up. Are your employees struggling to see the big picture, bogged down by repetitive tasks? BitBean offers a solution to boost motivation and productivity. They create integrated solutions that harmonize your business operations, enabling peak performance through streamlined workflows and custom software. This approach minimizes unnecessary clicks, window switches, and frequent double checking, reducing headaches significantly. BitBean starts with a comprehensive analysis of your current software and systems to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies. They then recommend tailored automations and software solutions that eliminate redundancies, reduce errors, and handle mundane tasks, freeing up time for critical activities like enhancing customer relations, evolving your product, and strengthening your brand. BitBean's solution make your workforce more productive and satisfied, helping them align more closely with your company's vision. They build top-tier software that cuts costs and unnecessary resources, offering significant savings. This is why they charge for an initial consultation. It's for businesses serious about transformative software solutions. If you're ready to elevate your business, contact BitBean today. Now back to this week's episode.
Was there, as you're learning more about Judaism, was there any part of the Torah that you were like more fascinated with than the other parts? Not that you didn't appreciate the others, but like one thing that you were like, whoa, this is mind blowing.
Coming from a culture of discipline, and I didn't think for a moment that the disciplined Jewish life is a limited type of life. Discipline oftentimes gives the person a framework of his life, just like for my grandfather. Yeah. But one thing that really caught my eye was that the degree of kindness that every Jewish person shows to his or her, fellow Jews. Unbelievable. Kindness, doing kindnesses is one of the pillars that this world stands. Just like P.K. Avos says, Avodas Hashem limud Torah ugemilos chasadim.
Correct. Yeah.
And those are the three pillars. And what caught my eye was such an active involvement of each Jew that I had a relationship with in doing the kindness, and that they are always involved in something in helping others. That was a great mitzvah that I really thought, wow, these people really care about each other. I want to be part of this people. So that one mitzvah really opened another door. After started observing Shabbos, starting to being part of the community. When I went to Rabbi Cooper to tell him that I want to become Jewish, you know what he said? Why on earth are you nuts? Because he reminded me that there's a thing called anti-Semitism. Because you're Jewish, people in the world would be unforgiving and hateful, it can be hateful, and that was proven in Jewish history. And why do you want to become Jewish? You're a great friend of the Jewish people. Why don't you remain that way? So my answer was that was not, that being a friend isn't good enough. With this life, with the Jewish people, I define myself. With the discipline, I came alive. I want to be part of your people. So he tried to dissuade me several times, just as the halakha dictates. But after several attempts, every time he rejected me, then I thought I took it as a personal challenge. I come from the samurai background, remember?
Yeah.
So every time a rejection came, my attitude, hardened, and determination became stronger. And at one point, the rabbi referred me to another rabbi. His name is Rabbi Yitzchak Adelstein, by whom, by his Rebbetzin, who, of course, cooks like a genius as well. And I became good friends with him. And he's the second rabbi to whom I told that I want to become Jewish. Again, he tried to dissuade me many, many times. But along the way, instead of saying no, 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 he gave me books, very deep books like Kuzari and Choreb.
Yeah.
And he said, read these. If you feel any relationship, if you see anything that you really devote your life to, come back. I'm here for you. We'll talk again. So I went back and forth between the books and rabbi. At the same time, I was, working, during the day and going to school, later in the day, not at night. So that was full life. And along the way, in our conversations, so like a life-searching conversations, we became friends. So Rabbi Adelstein brought me over to his house as a guest for Shabbos Suda. That Friday night, I still remember just as vividly as the first night of Rosh Hashanah. That was one step closer, one step deeper in a Jewish life. And I loved the food. I loved the company. I liked the amount of Torah that Rabbi Adelstein had at his table. And every week, literally every week, I was there. And along the way, Rabbi Adelstein, brought me over to his shul. It was not his shul, but the shul that he davened in, took part in. That shul has a nickname, Rabbi Bess's shul. It's formerly known as the Beis Midrash Kehilas Yaakov. And Rabbi Gershon Bess is a Rav there. And he brought me to the shul. And I was really, really in a foreign country. I didn't understand the Hebrew. I didn't understand.
You finally mastered English. Now you're like put into the
Right.
Hebrew. And you're like, oh, man.
Oh, I mean, there was no English in the shul. So I was out of place, but I wanted it, right? So I started taking classes, the Hebrew classes at another shul in the neighborhood. And I learned out-based with everybody else. So there was a Rebbe, there was a rabbi, and there are students. I was so eager to learn, so I learned, mastered Aleph-based. Okay. So my attitude was like, okay, I learned the ABC, so okay, let me get back to the shul. And I still didn't understand a thing.
Right.
But the people took me in. The Rabbi Bess seated me to the seat right next to him. That was the only empty seat that I saw. That's a Beis Midrash, always packed. There was no other seat. So I went up to the rabbi, said, Rabbi, I want to be part of the shul. Where can I sit? So Rabbi pointed at the seat right next to him, said, nobody sits here. This is your seat. And so I started davening there. And I remind you, that's a very small Beis Midrash packed with people. And Rabbi Adelstein wanted me to be closer, situated closer to him. So I sat between Rabbi Bess and Rabbi Adelstein. In front of me was Rabbi Bess. Behind me was Rabbi Adelstein. Left to me was a wall. And the right to me was another rabbi. So guess what? I learned how to dive in a hurry under strict rabbinical supervision. Baruch Hashem, that happened. And because of that, my davening improved quite rapidly. I became more familiar with the phrases, not only phrases, but got familiar with the holy language, the very, very sweet language that everything that we say, the holy words of Torah. And that whole experience, together with getting to know the people, being a rock star, in a neighborhood, going to, as a single man, I went to a different table for every meal.
Wow.
So
Were you officially Jewish at that point?
No.
No.
I was not even officially in the Gaius program.
Oh, wow.
So after 1.5, 2 years of getting to know the people, okay, I can now be in the program officially. Let's get this started. So I went to the Haredi, very reputable Haredi Beis Din called Rabbinical Council of California, with whose Gaius certificate is recognizing Eretz Israel also. Many Gaius programs in this country are unfortunately not recognized. So thank God that I went through the Gaius program very hard, very thorough, very deep, and the rabbis ask you, how are you happy? Where are you holding in this journey? What did you find? What did you find difficult? What did you find easy? Are you really sure that you need to be at a shul for Mincha Mariv at a certain time in a day? That can you handle that? That in a life that I had before didn't have any set schedule. I mean, it was busy, but I was running around at all times, 24/7. But all of a sudden, there's Shabbos. Okay, there's Shabbos, 25-hour period of disengaging from the mundane. That itself was eye-opening. When I started keeping Shabbos minus one melacha. Okay, so
what was the one malacha you did?
I did whatever was helpful. During summer, one family forgot to turn on a fan. So instead of asking a child to put the fan on, so I said that would be my melacha for the day. So I turned the fan on, and at some point, Hatzolah member. His Hatzolah member needed to have his, the communication device that he carried turned on because the battery went out. He needed to change the battery and it turned it back on. So that person was asking the Rav, is there any non-Jewish workers already working upstairs? And then Rav didn't know if that was the case, so I overheard it. I was not Jewish, so I said, "Rabbi, please see me in my office." So that was the back of the shul, and then there, I was able to turn that back on for him. Those things, not one particular melacha, but that's what I did. In the program, and there was a thorough learning. There was a thorough experiencing of the Jewish life. It was a very potent program that I went through. I'm so glad that was the program.
I want to fast forward a little, unless I'm missing something integral, let me know. But I want to get to how you and your wife got together.
Oh man, you're fast forwarding a little bit too much here.
Okay, so we could take it back if need be. We're well on the way. We're almost an hour into it, so I just want to make sure we cover.
Oh man, time flies.
Yeah, time is flying. We're having fun.
Okay, great. So after, I'll oblige and fast forward.
I mean, unless you want to say something quickly about the process or.
No, the process was, as I said, that I was very fruitful, and I was Megayer in 2012. April 1st, 2012, April Fool's Day, right?
Yeah. And
this was after a year and a half, a little bit more in the conversion process. So the name, funny that this happened. I don't want to sound strange here, but I had a dream. And in that dream, a man, that was a man because he had a long hair and a long beard, and he was glowing. I didn't see his face because it was glowing so much that I couldn't see. But I gathered that he was wearing some kind of a kittel, perhaps. And he looked very holy. And he told me that your name is Moshe Chaim.
When did you have this dream?
About a week or two before the mikveh.
Wow.
So your name is Moshe Chaim. At that time, that's a very authoritative, command. So all I could say was, okay, yes, sir. That'll be my name. So I had a different name in mind, but that's the name I took. And as soon as I came out of the mikveh, Beis Din asks, what is your name? So I proudly said, my name is Moshe Chaim ben Avraham Avinu. That's my name. That's my name on the Kesuvah. So the two of the rabbis there had a son named Moshe Chaim. So, okay, we have Moshe Chaims. Good. We can use one more. Welcome. And that was one special day. And during this time I was in graduate school, more I proceeded with the Gaius program, the more I learned about halakos and Jewish hashkafa and everything about Jewish life, which I'm still on a learning curve. Everything that I was studying and I have been finding very profound became obsolete. So I had 2 years, probably like 2.5 years to go at the time until the end of my PhD program, until the end of authoring a doctoral dissertation. So at the time, things became obsolete, which I thought very profound before. But this is my future. This is my life. I'll do both. So I did. So 2014, I finished my PhD, and that was dissertation defense was, try to guess. The dissertation defense was a day before my Orthodox Shabbos. I met my wife in 2014. This, again, Rabbi Adelsteen, who was a scholar in residence in Philadelphia at the shul, and whose rabbi is a friend of his. So at the table, my wife's there. My future wife was there. And Rabbi Adelsteen spoke about me. So that's, initially how my wife, realized that I existed. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was earlier in the year. And during Aseret Yom Teshuvah, I moved from LA to Philadelphia. I was a single man. That was a simple move. And that year, November 23rd, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, we got married at the Lower Marion Synagogue. That was the local wedding that everybody was very happy about. Didn't have to drive. They just walked over. Nice wedding. Baruch Hashem. My parents came also from Japan. They don't speak English. When I used to live in LA, they didn't have to speak English. They just hop on a plane and received by me on the other end. So here, we now live in Philadelphia. They need to change planes in Chicago, of all places. They don't speak English, changing planes from international to domestic. But they made a trip. That should prove to you that how proud my parents were.
That's really beautiful.
And, right before the wedding, I finished my dissertation. So I called my future wife and said that you are marrying a PhD. So, and that was the side note. But, getting married to my wife was one of the happiest moments in my life. So for that I couldn't do without becoming Jewish.
Really beautiful. I like to ask towards the end of the interview, the guests, if there's one favorite mitzvah out of the 613. And I think the question's always a little extra special when I'm talking to someone who's chosen the path to become a Jew. So I'm very curious what your answer is.
First of all, Im Eretz Hashem, Moshe should come, that we'll have all the 630 mitzvahs
Amen.
With us in our lives. Until then, one thing, the first mitzvah that I did was wearing tzitzis. And that was probably the prohibited choice as a Gentile for wearing tzitzis. But that meant so much to me. That was a very symbolic. And it's a reminder of, how many books of Bible that we received at the Mount Sinai. So that's the reminder of how many mitzvahs are there in there. That's the symbol of a relationship with Hashem, our God. So that's the one mitzvah that's very, very special to me. Of course, in the tefillin, Gilmas Chasadim, all that. Mm-hmm. Keeping Shabbos, of course. But tzitzis are very close to my heart.
If there's one person from history, it could be someone that's from recent history or someone from the Torah or whoever, that you could spend some time with, who would you spend that time with?
I wish to spend time with, people who I miss. But beyond that, I'd like to ask Moshe Rabbeinu as many questions as I have. And he's the one. He's the one person who could answer, all my questions, because he received the Torah. He relayed the Torah to us. And, of course, when we finish our days in this world, we'll go up there and all our answers will be answered. But I'd like to ask Moshe Rabbeinu first, what, things really are and are going to be, and find out later in heaven.
What do you think your grandfather, was he alive when you were going down this path, or he was already passed away?
No, he already passed away. He passed away when I was 10.
Okay, so what do you think he would say to the fact that you're Jewish?
Probably he would be very proud. I tell you this because when I decided to come to America, I asked my grandmother. I felt a little strange because United States was the country that he fought against.
Right.
And I didn't think that was quite appropriate if I went there without asking my grandmother. So I asked my grandmother if my grandfather would be proud of me, or even be if my grandfather feel appropriate for me to go to the United States to pursue my studies. So my grandmother said and gave me a stamp of approval, saying that your grandfather would be very proud. So this story of becoming Jewish, starting, born into a family, with the only family where the similar values are kept. I see Hashem's guidance in this. Like he had my hand all along and walked me through life one event at a time. At the end, I became Jewish. That was the beginning, not the end. That's the beginning. Mm. My grandfather would be very proud because my life started with the tradition that my grandfather brought over from the old world to the new.
Really beautiful. Before I get to my last question, if someone wants to hear you speak or get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you?
My email address, and that's something I'm happy to give you. My email address is Moshe Chaim 48 at protonmail.com.
I've never heard of protonmail.com, but we'll get to that. But first, spell it for everyone. And we'll have it also for anyone listening a link in the show notes so someone could just copy and paste it. But spell it for us, please.
So Moshe Chaim, Moshechaim in one word, in 48 in the Arabic numerals. So Memches 48, Gematria, at Proton, Proton, mail, and that's also in one word, .com. This is a new Gmail alternative.
Oh, is it?
That I would recommend.
Proton Mail.
The Proton Mail.
Oh, interesting. Never heard of it before, but
I'm happy with it.
Okay, good. And there's I just want to say, whoever, maybe a yeshiva or a shul, there's only so much we covered here. I know there's a lot more to your story.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend anyone to get in touch with you about that. And there's also, we were talking before, I'm just so curious culturally, like, which Japanese food do you miss, or that America's doing wrong, or just the Jewish?
Mm-hmm.
If we quickly touch on that right before I ask my last question,
Okay. One thing I miss. There's a thing called barbecue eel in Japan.
eel like the animal.
Eel like a long fish.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Then people say that looks like a snake in the sea.
Yes.
But it's not at all like that. When Moshe comes, it should be kosher. But the barbecue eel, which is very deeply flavored, barbecued, piece of delicate meat, white, fish, that melts in your mouth.
I never even had a taiva for it, but you're explaining it like it's like the most delicious yummy food ever.
Exactly.
Because in American culture, it sounds like, even to I can't. Do they even have it in America? No.
I believe it's available. Anything is available anywhere.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
but it's not like the same thing as like Burger King or McDonald's,
Oh, come on.
Right. It's bizarre to compare it to.
Right. But then rice, on top of rice, on top of steaming rice, perfectly made, there is this, glorious barbecue eel. That's what I miss most.
And I'm just curious because, how many, people from Japan that are Jewish, is our sushi so much worse than like the actual Japanese sushi, or like we're doing pretty good kosher sushi?
It's a different thing.
It's like a whole different world.
Completely.
Okay.
It's American food.
Uh-huh.
Right? People eat that for lunch.
Oh, you're saying America's sushi is so different. It's not even like the kosher sushi that's so different.
Well, the kosher sushi are better than other sushis available.
Interesting. Like, is it weird for you that like you go to a kosher pizza store and they have sushi? You're like, what?
The rule of thumb that I give you, everybody, is that the kosher restaurants, everything is available, like Chinese food and sushi at the same time. But if you want to have a good sushi, just get it at the right place. Mm-hmm. I will say that much. I'm sure those places are delicious, but coming from their background where sushi was only a once a year special food, which was not eaten for lunch daily.
Right.
And I would say that that should still be special, and I'd like to keep it special, for the sake of my good memory.
Okay, beautiful. What's a parting lesson that you want to give all our listeners?
So, as much as I planned to be a professor in political science, and I just went through the very intense program, I'm not a professor. I plan to be a professor, but I'm a wagon driver. I drive people around. I'm a kashrus moshkiach. Do those jobs define me? Not at all. Why? The man plans and the God laughs. And that was my plan, but Hashem had a different plan, making me a Jew, and shifted my entire focus to my own planning to his divine providence. So in today's world, there's a major crisis called shidduch crisis. Man, I don't know where to start it, but why are people so picky? And shidduch in marriage is not shopping. Finding somebody special is something that you could plan it. You could have a laundry list of what she or he should have or look like. Okay, fine. But those things will change. Those things will change. What are you picky about then? Mm. He may lose his hair. He may gain weight. So he will not look like what he looks like now. So why are you being picky about it? So your plan, I would say then we should set aside our plan and just place our trust in Hashem. Everything will be okay. But that first step starts with having a courage to place trust in Hashem, not making all the decisions in your hands.
Really beautiful. Moshe Chaim, one last question. How do you say thank you in Japanese?
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Okay. I'm not going to attempt it, but thank you.
All right. Arigatou, everybody.
Fascinating. If you got this far, please comment on the YouTube the word honorable. Because what is a good word to describe Moshe and his journey besides the word honorable? Remember, the most brilliant way to find the right job for you is with purplesteers.com, the coziest summer clothing with Twillery. Use the code INSPIRE for $18 off. BitBean Solutions make your workforce more productive and satisfied, and by the making of the halachic decision, making of a minhag, and the making of a mensch with the code WalterLL for 20% off your order on Feldheim.com. If you love this episode, go check out my conversation with Dr. Yehuda Price, who became a Jew while he was in jail. Incredible story, and we'll link the episode below. If you love what we do at Living L'Chaim, first off, thank you. You can help power what we do by donating to our company. We are a nonprofit 501c3, and your tax-deductible donations literally help us put the best content. You can support us at livingl'chaim.com/donate. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'Chaim.
Living L'Chaim.